Hey YouTube, Kira Twig here, bringing you all my Phantasm Spiral Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile for January 2021. This is a deck that I've actually gotten quite a few number of requests to do. This was a deck that was given its full support during the Maximum Crisis booster pack. Been a couple years now since that pack, but for this deck, it's a very interesting deck focusing on a normal type monster playstyle, and then using the power of the different spell and traps we have for the Phantasm Spiral deck, benefiting from having these normal monsters on the field for additional effects that these cards can provide. A very, very strong deck at that, and definitely would say pretty affordable to build just on those cards alone, adding in all the other different spell and trap support to definitely make it a powerhouse that it is. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the actual Phantasm Spiral monsters, I'm running two of our main go-to boss monster. It's really all you need in the deck. It's really, really easy to special some of these cards out with the different Phantasm Spiral spells that we're running, and also just being able to rely on our other normal monster that we run for additional power setup. So really just being a 2900 attack, 2900 defense, which can easily be boosted up with the other cards we're running to get over a good number of different plays our opponent might use. With the last and only other monster we run in the main deck, with my choice being Megalomasher X, or Megalos Smasher, I believe Megalos Smasher X. This is a dinosaur normal monster with 2000 attack. We are running some of the Umi support in this deck that focuses on water monsters, so being able to run this card with that support is a big plus for sure, but having 2000 attack and another normal monster won't be affected by the other spell and traps we're running for the Phantasm Spiral cards. You can try some of the other lineups, including maybe using the Worm normal monster to work with some of the other Tenyi support for the Phantasm Spirals, but I want to focus more on the actual monster and some of the other support we had for searching out this card altogether. And like I said, that is all we are running for the monsters in the main deck, the majority of the other cards being for spell and trap lineup. So for the spells, we are running three Pacifist, the Phantasm City. This card's name is always treated as Umi, and you cannot normal summon or special summon effect monsters the turn you activate either of this card's effects, even if this card leaves the field. Once per turn, if you normal or special summon exactly one normal monster and no other cards, you add one Phantasm Spiral card from your deck to your hand. If your opponent activates a card or effect, except during the damage step, you control no tokens, you can special summon one Phantasm Spiral token onto the field, which has a 2000 attack, 2000 defense, and is a level 8 water monster. So with it, like I said, our only go-to summons in the deck are Megalos Smasher X and also Phantasm Spiral Dragon. So this is a great field spell for that setup, stopping our opponent by giving us a monster on the field whenever they would summon a monster, but also giving us search power for the majority of other Phantasm spells and traps that we're running for that setup. And this card's always treated as Umi, so we have some other cards to work with this card in the deck for more of that search power. For some of the other Phantasm Spiral cards, I run two Phantasm Spiral Wave. You equip only to a normal monster. The first time the equipped monster will be destroyed by battle each turn, it is not destroyed. At the end of the battle phase of the equipped monster battle, you can special summon one Phantasm Spiral Dragon from your hand, deck, or graveyard. Equip it with this card. Then if they have any, your opponent discards one card. You can only use this effect of a Phantasm Spiral Wave once per turn. So that goes for the easy special summon we have for Phantasm Spiral Dragon. With this card then equipping onto that card, and also being able to protect it from battle, and the fact that we'll have plenty of other trap cards that we're running in the deck to protect our main go-to monster in the deck for that setup. But just having the requirements for that being our main monsters that we're running in the deck is a great setup, being also able to disrupt our opponent plays. But I only run two of it because we can easily search out this card with the field spell after we meet the requirement, which is having just the one normal monster we summon that turn. And I also run two Phantasm Spiral Crush. Equip to a normal monster. If the equipped monster attacks, the defense monster inflicts piercing battle damage to your opponent. And when this monster equipped with it inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can special summon one Phantasm Spiral Dragon from your hand, deck, or graveyard and equip it with this card. This card can change one attack position monster your opponent controls to defense, and you can only use this effect once per turn. So this is a way to get around your opponent playing defensively against the one monster you'll usually have on the field, being able to inflict some pretty powerful piercing damage to your opponent, while also being able to, like I said, change the equip spell of this card after from one of your other normal monsters to the main go-to target for that normal monster. And lastly, for the equip spells, I also run 2 Phantasm Spiral Grip. You equip only to a normal monster, it gains 500 attack. When the equipped monster destroys an opponent's monster by battle, and you can special summon 1 Phantasm Spiral Dragon from your hand, deck, or graveyard, equip it with this card, then inflict 1000 damage to your opponent. So once you get all the equip spells set, you basically have this powerhouse of a monster on the field, and that's just how easy it is to special summon this card onto the field using our other normal monster we have for that setup. For more of the search power to go into that normal monster, I also run 3 Fossil Dig. You just add 1 level 6 or lower dinosaur type monster from your deck to your hand. So basically just searching out our only other monster we're running in the deck is that much more easier. It basically counts as a monster spot unless your opponent obviously stops the search of this card with Ash Blossom, but still that'll take a resource away from them as well, and then just having the option to search again, since this card is not a once per turn. So if you have the multiple Fossil Digs, you can search out for another Megalo Smasher X with each one. I also run the 3 Pot of Extravagance. You rarely go into the extra deck with this deck, so being able to just have more and more draw power means more important cards to draw into with this card. So very, very useful for sure. Just the fact that, like I said, we're not really be going into the extra deck at all for this deck, so all the cards we potentially could banish won't really harm the main playstyle of the deck either. And then for the one-ofs, I run the 1 Card of Demise and the 1 Terraforming, with this card being at 1 on the ban list. It's still great draw power, especially since once that setup is basically going for, you can have the, monster you normal summon on the field, not needing to special summon at all that turn, set some more cards on the field, and draw into some more potential cards to fill up your entire back row. Having the equip spells to equip onto that monster as well, and Terraforming, searching out our important field spell, which will also take up a 1 less spot that you would want for more back row that you could draw into with Card of Demise. And that is it for these spells. We'll now move on to the traps. One of the best Phantasm Spiral traps we run on the deck is Phantasm Spiral Battle. If all monsters you control are normal monsters, minimum 1, target 1 card your opponent controls, destroy it. If Umi is on the field, you can activate this card from your hand, and you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 1 normal monster you control, equip that normal monster with all Phantasm Spiral equip spells you control that can equip to it. So we run a pretty good number of equip spells, and the fact that this card basically becomes an infinite impermanence while Umi is on the field. It makes it that much easier of a card to use against our opponent for those resources, especially if we have to eat away at some of the traps we drew into with Card Demise or Pot of Extravagance, just giving us more resources as long as we have that open spot on the field to use as well. I also run 2 Phantasm Spiral Power. I didn't run the one with the win condition. It just seems too gimmicky for the playstyle, but Phantasm Spiral Power, if all monsters you control are normal monsters, minimum 1, target 1 effect monster your opponent controls. Until the end of this turn, it loses 1000 attack and defense and also has its effects negated. If Umi is on the field, you can activate this card from your hand, and you can banish this card from your graveyard, target 1 normal monster you control, and equip 1 basically 1 Phantasm Spiral equip spell card from your hand or graveyard to that normal monster. So a recycle trap card, while this one basically switches control of all those equip spells. But this card is pretty much, infinite impermanence for the deck. If you didn't have the card to actually run, the best substitute as long as you have your field spell to rely on also. So just the 2 though. This destruction one definitely comes in handy a lot more for that setup, but I really do like the recycle power and the fact that these traps do have all options from the graveyard to use against our opponent for the equip spell setup. And I also run 3 Sea Stealth Attack, a pretty good number of traps in the deck just because they all work very, very well together. With Sea Stealth Attack, when this card is activated, you can activate 1 Umi from your hand or graveyard, and while Umi is on the field, this face-up card gains these effects. So before that, just remember that the Pacifist, the Phantasm City, its card's name is always treated as Umi, so that comes in handy with this trap as well. And once per turn, you can banish 1 water monster you control until the end phase. This turn, all face-up spell traps you control cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. So great protection there for sure, because we do run a pretty good amount of them. That'll stay face up, including the equip spells and some of the other traps we have in the deck. And at the start of damage step, if your water monster, whose original level is 5 or higher, battles an opponent's monster, destroy that opponent's monster. So this card can basically mean it can get over a good amount of all your opponent's monsters, being the fact that it is level 5 or higher, and just destroying it without even touching it. Clearing all your opponent's monsters out, and then basically making it so your opponent can't even get over your own monsters that you have on the field. I also run 3 Paleozoic Canadia, with this one having the option to special summon another monster on the field for a resource while it's in the graveyard. Just a good way to disrupt our opponent's plays with their setup as well. So that's why I like to run 3 of this card for the trap lineup. And another one of our face-up continuous spells is there can only be one. Each player can only control one monster of each type. If a player controls 2 or more of the same type, they must send that monster to the graveyard. So that's why I also like running Megalith Smasher X for the fact that it's a dinosaur, and Phantasm Spiral Dragon is a worm, meaning you can both have these 2 monsters on the field while you can potentially disrupt any of your opponent's plays that they may have for that setup. You can try some of the other continuous traps if you don't want to run this. Let's say you decide to go with the worm route, or it's just not working against the opponent you're playing and you side this card out for some other options, including Infinite Impermanence if you do have the card. And then to finish off the traps, I also run 2 Drowning Mirror Force and 2 Storming Mirror Force. So just in the rare situations where you don't have a monster on the field, Storming Mirror Force does come in handy for the fact that it'll just shuffle all your opponent's monsters back, making them, fear attacking into you directly until you get a monster on the field, which then after your equip spells are equipped, makes it that much more scary of a play. And Storming Mirror Force, returning extra deck monsters back to the extra deck that your opponent may have, is just as scary as well. And that is it for the main deck. Normally I wouldn't even be going over the extra deck because it's not really gone into at all with this deck, but just, still needing to banish cards for Pot of Extravagance. I run 1 Barricade Board Blocker, 1 Wee Witch's Apprentice, 1 Nightmare Phoenix, 1 Nightmare Cerberus, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, 1 Saryuja, 1 Borolo Dragon, 1 Exciton Knight, 1 Abyss Dweller, 1 Tornado Dragon, 1 Baguska, 1 Silent Honor Arc, 1 Diamond Dire Wolf, 1 Utopia, and 1 Utopia the Lightning. But like I said, most of the time these are just banish fodder for a Pot of Extravagance. I rarely go into the extra deck, but still always good just to have the option available to use in the deck. And as for the playstyle, we want to basically open up the Megalith Smasher X, so whether you search it out or just wait for draw power with some of the other cards you have in the deck, then that setup relies on you having your other Phantasm Spiral cards. Basically, if you want to get the field spell set up and then having the equip spells equipped onto it, means that you'll have the potential to get out your boss monster, which then will be very difficult because then these cards will equip onto it and make it that much more difficult for your opponent to get over this card, especially when you have all this other trap lineup protecting this card and yourself against your opponent's monsters. But it's a very, very fun deck to definitely give a try, just for the fact that it is a very unique playstyle compared to a lot of the other decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Currently. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Like I said, this was a requested deck that definitely took some time to look into, but definitely glad I did. I know a lot more of the deck now for sure. Maybe we'll get some more support for it later down the road, or maybe there's even some support that I'm not aware of that we don't have yet in the TCG. But until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.